afternoon and welcome to another episode of Tafakari. We carry on with our Decolonial AI development series, and today we're going to take some time to understand a concept that is central to just understanding decoloniality as a whole, and that is the Modernity, Coloniality school of thought. So essentially, in the Modernity Coloniality school of thought, what's happening here is that, scholars have said there is no modernity without coloniality. That modernity and coloniality are two sides of the same coin. So what does this mean? It means that anytime you hear a conversation around modernizing, development, etc., there's another side of that, and that side is coloniality, and that side is a dark side. And scholars have gone even further to talk about Eurocentric modernity versus coloniality. And this is because for the last 500 years or so, starting with Christopher Columbus' discoveries, in quotes obviously, the world has been under the Euro-North American Empire. And because in this architecture of the Euro-North American Empire, it was organized along racial lines, what has happened is that non-Western people were at the mercy of this whole process. Or rather, what we mean is that in the schema of Eurocentric modernity, and think about it as Europe modernizing, that whole process that they took to advance. I don't like calling it development because it's not development if the rest of the world had to pay for it through genocide, linguicide, culturicide, etc., right? And so what we're saying is that when you read, European development, Europe's way of modernizing, what this translates into is that there's no special character that Europe had, because you tend to think, and a lot of times is, we need to emulate Europe or stuff like that. And what decolonial scholars are drawing to our attention is that that process of Europe becoming what it is today, so that you can aspire to go for a Euro tour, you can go and aspire there, admire the architecture, had a dark side to that. And this dark side was coloniality. And within this schema, because it was arranged along racial lines, what happened is that non-Western people paid the price for this process of modernization. And this translated into non-Western people centering in all forms of dehumanization processes, such as mercantilism, imperialism, slavery, neocolonialism, underdevelopment, apartheid, colonialism, etc. So you can see here, coloniality is not only the dark side of Western-centric modernity, but it has involved diverse, or rather it has manifested itself in diverse processes. Why is this relevant for us today? It's relevant because just because colonialism ended, which I think was one of the most dramatic forms and slavery of coloniality, does not mean that coloniality ended. Because even in our current era, decolonial scholars have talked about underdevelopment as a facet of coloniality, neocolonialism as a facet of coloniality, globalization as a facet of coloniality. And in all these facets, you find that it is non-Western people who bear the brunt of advancing the Euro-North American Empire. This is relevant today because that same order persists to a day. If you've been here for a while, remember I've defined the coloniality of being as a schema in European colonization in which the human race was socially categorized, and thereafter there was vertical hierarchization. And what this means is that the European was at the top, and thereafter non-colored people featured in the lower hierarchies of the ladder. And because the proximity to the top was based on lightness, that means black people in this schema were at the bottom. And which is why, of all colored people, we star in all these different processes. The slavery, the colonialism, we bore the brunt of that. And that's why you have conversations like anti-black racism, to be very clear that yes, there is racism against racialized people, but because the black body is considered the farthest from this schema, we need to be very specific about that. Sorry. So, now how does this translate into AI development? It's the same thing. If you're a keen observer of AI development, there is no day that you're not going to hear big tech talk about, the concept of techno-evangelism. AI will deliver this, AI will do that. AI has just become just about a solution for anything. And so that conversation around modernity development, AI will modernize the world, AI will transform the world. I think it's even in OpenAI's Stargate website, actually that's where it was, where they say that they want to build AGI for the benefit of all humanity. Now, if you start putting your critical lenses on, and that's what decolonial work is about, is to say, in that narrative of modernizing, transforming, there is a dark side. Yes, never mind how well marketed it is, there is a dark side. And sure enough, in AI development, you notice that the dark side of the non-Western world, in terms of bearing the burden that is involved, or the unpalatable aspects of AI development. Because I hold that AI development is actually colonial. And you can just tell this by the fact that it is underpinned by a white, male, heteronormative, imperialist power structure. And so how that translates is that non-Western people in the global south, do low-paying jobs that are equally important. That is data labeling, that is data annotation. That is how you find the externalization of the ecological effects of AI development are placed on non-Western people in the form of carbon credits. Carbon credits that interfere with indigenous people's use of their lands, right? Or think about data centers, and that is what there's been a lot of opposition to that in South America. You take these data centers there, but the benefit for these populations is incomparable compared to how global North populations benefit from these technologies. So you can see that even until today, coloniality structures our world order. So why is this important to understand? It's important to understand because I know as a person of color, first of all, it helps us understand why colored people disproportionately feature in all dehumanization processes. It helps you understand that because I know that there's not one person of color who sat down and thought to themselves, but why do people of color feature prominently? And this is just to affirm you and say this is not an accident. It is actually a structure in place. And that structure is coloniality. The second thing, it helps us understand as critical scholars, anytime you hear this story, just understand there's a dark side to it. So when you hear AI will do this, AI will do that, put your critical cap on and think coloniality and find out who is paying the price for that. And when you dig deeper, because this is on racialized hierarchies, you find that your cue to check where is on non-Western people. So that's all that I had for today. And until next time, kwaherini.